A man in a worn coat stepped through the doors of the most expensive restaurant in the city, where one dinner could pay a person's monthly wage. No one recognized him. No one greeted him. Only cold glances passed by and vanished, as if he didn't exist. He sat at a small table near the kitchen door, a place nobody wanted. The scent of grilled meat mixed with the sound of clinking glasses, a luxury he once knew well. But tonight, everything felt different. His name was Jack Blackwell. The men's magazines called the invisible billionaire. He owned $10 billion and dozens of companies. But the one thing he couldn't buy was truth. He wasn't there to eat. He came to see what was rotting inside his own empire. A waitress approached, a young woman with tired eyes and a voice soft as wind. "Good evening, sir." Her greeting felt light, human. In a place full of artificial smiles, Jack nodded, ordered a dish that made everyone turn. Emperor's cut, $500 for a single steak. Someone chuckled quietly. The girl bowed her head, said nothing, just wrote it down and walked away. He watched her go. Her steps were quick but shaky. Her uniform had faded. Her shoes were almost torn, telling the story of someone trying to stand firm in a world not made for her. The dish arrived. He didn't touch it. She stood from afar, uneasy. Then, when he set his fork down, she approached. Her hand was trembling, her voice barely a whisper. "Would you like anything else, sir?" He shook his head. As she cleared the plate, her hand slipped a folded napkin beneath his glass. No one saw. No one knew. But in that moment, time seemed to stop. Jack unfolded it. 4 hurried lines froze him still. The ink was smudged, the letters tilted, but enough to shatter the wall of trust he'd built his life upon. "They're watching you. The kitchen isn't safe. Check the ledger in Greg's office. He's poisoning your supply chain." Candlelight flickered across his face, turning the room around him into shadow. Laughter, wine, crystal lights, all faded. Only one chilling question remained in his mind. Who was poisoning whom? Jack sat still, his hand gripping the napkin tight. In that instant, he understood. He hadn't just ordered a meal. He'd uncovered a secret that could bring his entire empire down. Not every dinner ends with gratitude. Sometimes it begins a war. Secrets, stories, transformations. If you still believe honesty has no place in today's world, stay until the end of this story. Like, share, and subscribe to keep these true tales of courage and truth alive from the darkness. On the highest floor of a tower that touched the clouds, Jack Blackwell sat alone before a wall of glass stretching to the horizon. Below his feet, the city glowed like a living map, each streak of light a story. Each shadowed figure was a secret he no longer understood. His name was everywhere. On hotels, on office towers, on the stock index itself. Blackwell Industries, an empire reaching from hospitality to finance, from biomedicine to real estate. But to him, it was all just numbers without a heartbeat. The phone rang. "Q2 exceeded expectations, sir." He nodded silent. The employee slipped out, the door closing softly behind. Only the wind against the glass remained, and the ticking clock, counting seconds nobody cared about. Jack leaned back, eyes closing slowly. He saw himself as a boy again, a kid in a small Ohio town standing outside a lumber mill, looking up at the first building he'd ever drawn with a worn pencil. His mother, a high school teacher, bent down and placed her hand on his shoulder. "You can build anything you want, Jack, but remember, the hardest thing to build is honesty." "I know, Mom. Honesty is what you build when no one's watching." That line stayed with him through every deal, every contract, every handshake. But the higher he climbed, the fewer people met his eyes. Around him were polished smiles, programmed nods. Every dinner had laughter, but no real voices. Every handshake had a price, but no meaning. That evening, he turned off all the lights in his office. City lights rose up and reflected his shadow on the glass. The image felt strange. A man looking at himself from the other side. Unsure which version was real, he whispered, "I own everything. Accept truth. On the desk lay a new report. The first line read, Blackwell Hospitality Division. Highest profit margin this quarter, the Gilded Fork. The numbers were flawless. Profits up 30%. No errors, no discrepancies. A report so clean, it didn't feel real. He smiled faintly. Perfect numbers never tell perfect truths. Jack stood and opened a drawer. Inside was an old membership card, just an ordinary guest card, the name faint, Jim Blake. He'd kept it for years. For nights when he needed to disappear from the summit unnoticed, its edges were bent, corners frayed. But to him, it was the only key back to the real world. He changed out of his $1,000 suit into a worn corduroy jacket from a thrift shop, faded jeans, cracked leather shoes. In the mirror, the billionaire vanished. Only a man remained, someone who could be refused service in a place he owned. He looked at his reflection and murmured, "Let's see what my empire really feeds on." In the elevator down, the lights of each floor slid past like memories of a gilded life. With every level, he shed another layer of privilege. When the doors opened to the lobby, Jack Blackwell no longer existed. He was Jim Blake, a man nobody needed to know. Outside, the city hissed like a restless machine. Rain drifted in silver threads. Neon lights rippled across wet pavement. He stepped into the crowd. For the first time in years, no one bowed. No one held the door. A low voice narrated. Calm, steady. He'd spent his whole life looking down. But that night, he chose to look up, to see the real faces, the real hands, the people who built the empire he only knew through numbers. A taxi stopped before the Gilded Fork. Crystal lights gleamed inside. Wine glowed in a glass. And beneath the glitter, smiles trembled under the fear of losing a job. Jack took a slow breath. Tonight, he whispered, I'm not watching the markets. I'm watching the truth. And as the restaurant doors opened, warm air of luxury brushed against his cold face. The audience understood. The most expensive experiment of Jack Blackwell's life had just begun. The scent of butter and wine mingled like a memory of luxury. Do you have a reservation? No. We're usually fully booked, but I can seat you near the kitchen entrance. That's fine. Laughter echoed from distant tables. Curious glances followed. No one knew who he was. No one needed to know. His table sat beside the kitchen door, where heat mixed with perfume and frying oil, a place for the forgotten. A confident voice filled the air. Our brand is built on integrity. The sentence cracked amid the clinking of glasses. Then another voice, colder. If you break another plate, it's coming out of your paycheck. No one laughed after that. Footsteps softened, afraid to wake something sleeping. Every smile was a performance, every word a mask. Someone whispered, he treats guests like gods, and staff like ghosts. That line cut through him, revealing what had truly begun to rot inside his empire. He once believed he'd built a place of trust and respect. Now he saw a machine that could bow and grin, but had forgotten how to be human. His eyes found a girl, hair tied back neatly, wrists darkened by labor, eyes bright yet tired. She poured water, her hand trembling slightly. A small detail, but real. He exhaled softly. I built this empire to serve people, and now it serves itself. Around him, the lights still glowed, but inside, darkness spread. He once thought power meant sitting high above. Now he understood. Truth sat at the lowest table in the room. A couple called for more wine. Voices thrilled. Your rarest bottle, something worth remembering. The waitress bowed, smile fixed like glue. Of course, an unforgettable pour. As she turned away, her smile collapsed, as if strength had drained one more layer. A young busboy hurried past with a basket of linens. Table 12 needs clearing. Now. I'll get it done. His voice cracked with youth, swallowing fear. Jack listened to the harsh rhythm of this place. Plates moved like apologies. Chairs slid as if begging pardon. Every tray carried quiet obedience. The manager walked by, Perfume sharp as a blade. That VIP needs a refill. Don't make him ask. Yes, I'm on it. Smile? They tip smiles. A middle-aged woman set down a tray beside him. Water for you. Thank you. She hesitated a beat, then murmured, Eat slow. Food tastes different when you aren't rushed. Her words felt like a sugary plea. He looked at the glossy menu shining like a mirror, gold letters on black, promising perfection, but all he saw were empty spaces, spaces between slogans and real souls. At the host table, laughter swelled again. Our investors love the momentum. Record margins. Margins don't lie. People do. The dialogue fell into him like stones into a well. He remembered that small house in the cold wind, a creaking wooden table, his mother's soft voice. Honesty is what you build when no one's watching. The lesson echoed back, brushing away the dust that had settled over his heart. The girl with tied hair returned, placing bread and butter. Bread is warm. Thank you. She nodded gently, eyes not daring to linger. A thin red mark crossed her wrist. A small scar from hot oil. Truth often lived in marks that small. He looked up at the glass wall. It reflected a glittering room breathing wealth. And himself. A stranger inside his own house. Loneliness thickened like mist. The manager swept by again, voice dripping honey. Everything to your liking. Food smells good. Only the best for our guests. As he turned away, a waiter dropped a spoon. The sound was tiny, but loud. Careful, or I'll cut your hours. Gentleness to guests became knives behind their backs. Jack sipped his water, cold enough to sting his tongue, cold like the promises frozen in this room. Cold like the fear in every pair of eyes. At another table, a man lifted his napkin and smirked. This place, it performs wealth. His friend nodded. We perform too, until the bill comes. Their laughter rose, struck the ceiling, and shattered. Jack placed his hand on the polished table. It was smooth to the point of numbness. That smoothness felt like a defense rehearsed too well. A dish could be perfect. But when people cracked, flavor lost its meaning. The girl returned to refill his glass. Your entree will be out soon. What's your name? She paused a second softly. Maya. I'm Jim. She nodded. Her eyes softened as if something clicked quietly inside. From the kitchen came sharp order calls. Fire 2 ribeyes, medium rare, wok with sides. On it, amid the rush, a pocket of silence formed. A silence heavy enough to shape a thought. He murmured to himself. If people are scared to speak, the building learns to lie. The words fell like stones, solid, irreversible. A young guest accidentally blocked a waiter's path. Sorry, didn't see you. It's okay, but the waiter's step faltered, as if an apology couldn't heal an entire invisible day. The manager lifted a glass at the bar. Here's to excellence. The clink of crystal rang clear, but clear didn't mean clean. Jack looked at Maya again. She avoided his eyes, then met them. In that instant, something moved. Quietly, like a compass needle finding north. He closed his eyes, then opened them. A decision rose through his spine. Right here, at this low table. Truth had found its place. He spoke softly just for himself. I built a door out of glass, but forgot to open it. A chill sadness passed through his chest, then faded. Maya returned with a small tray. Would you like anything else? Just a little time. She nodded, releasing a breath no one noticed. Time is the hardest thing to pour. He smiled, thin as the edge of paper. I'm not in a hurry. Good. One small word is strong enough to lift the weight of her tray. He heard the wind hiss beyond the doors. Just a whisper. It sounded like the past tugging at the present. He let it pull. Resistance would only extend the lie for one more dinner. Another silence opened. Silent like the moment before rain. Silent like a confession waiting for its name. He looked around the dining room, then back at his table. Integrity tastes like salt. You only notice it when it's missing. The line scraped lightly across his tongue, enough to taste how long the salt had been gone. Maya stepped forward, placing the plate gently. "It's hot. Eat slow." "Thank you." She hesitated, then stepped back, stepping back to make space for what remained unsaid. He cut the first piece, left it resting on his fork. The flavor touched his tongue, then stopped. Good, but alone. Good, without trust. He set the fork down, drew a long breath. In that breath, he heard the answer, not for the mouth, but for the heart of a place that had forgotten it had one. He opened his eyes, gazing toward the kitchen. The door swung each time someone passed, each swing a question opening and closing again. He whispered into the empty space before him. "I built this empire to serve people, and now it serves itself." This time, the words didn't fall. They stood and waited for an answer. Maya appeared at the edge of his vision. Her glance lingered long enough for trust to take root. Tiny, but alive. Somewhere, a clock ticked once. A crack widened in the silence, and through that crack, real light slipped in. Deeper, clearer. Impossible to shut out again. Her name was Lily Hart, 23 years old, brown eyes gentle as morning, yet beneath them lived the fatigue of someone who had survived too many days without rest. That night, between glasses of wine and bursts of laughter, she lowered her gaze to an old phone screen, checking her brother's prescription. Ben, 17. Weak lungs, and the pills almost gone. A notification appeared. Payment declined. She turned off the screen quickly, as if not seeing could make it untrue. A guest called for more wine. "Yes, sir. Right away." Her voice stayed soft, steady, without a single crack. But when she turned away, her hand trembled. In that golden room, no one noticed the tear that fell onto the napkin she was folding. It vanished, like salt in a sea of wine and laughter. She stood behind the bar, steadying her breath. A coworker whispered, "You okay, Lily?" "Yeah, just tired." Tired was the easiest word, because it hid everything. Greg Stone approached, his suit pinched at the shoulders, eyes cold as worn steel. "Lily, we need to talk." She set down the tray, lifted her chin. "Yes, sir." "Inventory from last week. Missing items." "Your signature. There must be a mistake." "I double-checked." "Then you double messed up." He smirked, sliding a paper toward her. "Losses total 5,000. You'll pay it off? I'll garnish your checks." 5,000? "Sir, that's—" "Don't argue. You're lucky I don't fire you or blacklist you. You like working here, don't you?" She bit her lip. "Then keep quiet and keep working." Greg walked away. His cologne hung in the air like a threat. She leaned against the counter, heart racing. $5,000, a number big enough to kill every hope of buying Ben's next dose, but losing the job meant losing everything. She took a long breath, swallowed the ache, and smiled at the next table. "Another drink, sir." For a moment she remembered the old house, peeling paint, her mother's soft cough in the kitchen. That small woman once told her on a sunless afternoon, "If you can't be rich, be kind." She hadn't understood then. Now she did. Kindness was the one thing no one could confiscate. Her hand placed a glass before a customer. "Thank you," he said without looking up. "Always my pleasure," she replied, voice barely more than a breath. She didn't know the man in the worn coat was the one who built the world now suffocating her. The night moved on. She moved like air, quick, precise, silent. Every nod, every thank you was real, but behind them her heart cracked a little more. She didn't complain, didn't curse, just worked, because every shift meant one more day. Ben could breathe easier. Greg passed by, smiling at wealthy guests, then cut her with his eyes. "Smile more, Lily." Rich people hate sad waitresses. She pressed her lips together, then smiled. Perfect timing, perfect curve, perfect lie. A smile no one could afford except her. As the lights softened, she stood near the kitchen, watching the golden room. Everything looked beautiful because it was fake, but among the glitter, something else caught her eye. A man is sitting alone near the kitchen door. His gaze was different, not judging, not demanding, not calculating, just quiet, as if searching for something true. She approached, tray steady, voice gentle. "Good evening, sir. My name's Lily. I'll be taking care of you tonight." He looked up, a slow smile forming. "Then I'm in good hands." The simple line made her pause, not because of his voice, but because of how he said it, as if he believed her. "Would you like something to drink?" "Just water for now." "Of course." She turned away, but that feeling stayed. Not attraction, but recognition. Two lonely souls sensing each other's quiet weight. He watched her go, saw her steps quick yet steady, saw the cracks at her shoes' tips, still polished by a cheap brush. He thought quietly, people build worlds, and forget the people inside them. She returned with a glass. "Here you go." "Thank you, Lily." His voice was calm, sincere. She smiled, truly smiled, for the first time that night, not out of courtesy, but because trust had flickered to life. A moment later, she touched her chest near the counter. She didn't know why, but one look, one sentence, had made her feel less invisible. In a room full of performances, perhaps she'd finally found one listener who was real. She didn't know. He was thinking the same thing. Two people, on opposite sides of loneliness, had just seen each other. And in that moment, something began to move, slowly, but unstoppable. Jack looked up as Lily approached, her smile still soft, though a flicker of worry crossed her eyes. "Would you like to order, sir?" He nodded slowly, voice calm, like testing the echo in a room built on pretense. "I'll have the Emperor's cut steak and a bottle of Chateau Blanc, 1998. Lily froze. In her head, the number appeared instantly. $800. 2 months' rent. A fraction of Ben's medicine. She swallowed, then nodded. "Excellent choice, sir." Across the bar, Greg glanced over, his eyes narrowing. "Who's he?" a server whispered. "Walk in. No reservation." Greg smirked. "Walk-ins don't drink 98 blank. Watch this." Lily stepped into the kitchen, order slip trembling in her hand. The chef looked up, frowning. "You sure? That bottle's locked." Manager approved. She drew a quiet breath. "He will." She said it softly, trying to steady her voice. Two thoughts echoed inside her. If he doesn't pay, she'd lose her wages. If she insulted him, Greg would do worse. Two choices, both losing. She returned, smile delicate, trying not to let it crack. Jack watched her, seeing everything she didn't say. He asked quietly, "Do you recommend it? People say it's unforgettable. Do you believe them?" She pressed her lips together. "I believe memories aren't made by price tags." He nodded. "Good answer." Greg strolled over, pretending warmth. "Everything to your liking, sir," Jack replied evenly. "So far, so polite." "Excellent. We pride ourselves on that." He turned to Lily, voice slicing softly. "And Lily prides herself on not making mistakes." "Of course, sir." "Good. Keep it that way." He walked off, leaving the air thick and sour. Lily stood still. Sweat gathered at her neck. Her hands trembled as she opened the bottle. Jack stayed silent, watching every motion. She tilted the bottle, the red wine rippling into the glass. Like the blood of an elegant world pretending to be pure, she lowered her head. "For you." He lifted the glass. Through its crystal, her image bent and real at once. "Ever had it?" he asked. "Never could." "Why not?" "Because people like me pour it, not drink it." He paused, then said quietly, "Then tonight, maybe that should change." She shook her head, smiling faintly. "I'd rather earn my sip." "Fair enough." Her words fell into him, small but deep, rippling outward. He thought of the years building his empire, the numbers, the contracts, the signings, all suddenly hollow. He realized truth didn't live on the stock exchange. It stood before him, in a tired waitress, holding her dignity with shaking hands. She turned away, fixing her apron, lips tight as if hiding something fragile. Greg reappeared, voice oily. "Everything perfect, sir." "Nearly." "Good, good. And Lily's taking good care of you?" She is. Greg smirked. She'd better be. We don't keep weak links. Jack set his glass down. Funny thing about weak links, they usually hold more weight than you think. Greg blinked. Excuse me. Nothing. Just thinking aloud. Greg left, a smirk lingering. Lily stared after him. Sorry about that. Don't be. He's afraid of something. Of what? Being seen. Silence fell, only the sound of wine shifting in his glass. He glanced around the golden room. Light, too warm to be honest. Then back to her. Do you like working here? She smiled tiredly. I like people. I like feeding them. This place just happens to pay. Still, you smile through it. Because if I stop, it means he won. Jack leaned back, eyes deepening. Her words echoed in his mind. Because if I stop, it means he won. He'd heard something like it before, from his mother, who once taught him kindness wasn't weakness. Now it lived again, in this girl standing before him. She set down the steak. Hottest plate in the house. Thank you. Anything else? Maybe just tell me something true. She paused. Something true. Yeah, anything. Her eyes fell. Truth doesn't pay the bills. Neither does silence. For the first time, their eyes met without flinching. A small space, but real. He felt like life had just placed its test before him. Not about money, but conscience. He cut the first piece of steak, chewed slowly. Good. Better than I deserve. She smiled. A rare, honest smile. Then you're lucky tonight. Across the room, Greg's stare burned from the bar. Jack saw it all, said nothing. He simply slipped a folded bill beneath his napkin, not to show off, but to see what she would do. Lily returned and noticed it. $500. Her breath caught. If she kept it, Ben could have his medicine. If she did, she'd become what she despised. She stood still, then folded the bill and placed it back on his tray. Sir, you overpaid. Jack looked straight at her. Did I? Yes, I counted twice. He smiled faintly. Then I guess honesty's still expensive, she answered softly. Not as expensive as losing yourself. And in that moment, he knew. She wasn't the one being tested. He was. He whispered inside. She doesn't know it, but she's the test I came looking for. And for the first time in years, he felt he had met someone real. Greg appeared at the end of the bar, his voice sharp as a knife striking wood. Nice service tonight, Lily. But let's be clear. She looked up, hand still drying a glass. Clear about what? If that guy eats and walks, you pay. Every cent. She froze, eyes flickering. Sir, he hasn't done anything wrong. Not yet, but when he does, I don't want excuses. Why me? Because I pick who bleeds when this place gets cut. She swallowed, trying to keep her voice calm. I'll make sure he pays. You'd better. It's your paycheck. Or the door. He walked away, leaving the air stained with the cold smell of cigarettes. Lily gripped the towel tightly, took a deep breath. Her heartbeat raced like a clock pounding inside her head. She looked around. Guests still laughed, still dined, still lived in a world untouched by fear. Only she, and people like her, knew what fear truly smelled like. At the far corner, Jack saw everything. Light reflected through the wine glass, cutting shadows across his face. He hadn't heard every word, but he didn't need to. The tension in Greg's tone, the flicker of fear in her eyes, told enough. She didn't beg. She didn't rebel. She just stood tall, like someone used to carrying both debt and guilt at the same time. Greg turned, scanning the room, searching for witnesses. Their eyes met, a brief moment, but sharp as steel striking steel. Greg narrowed his eyes, lips curling. His gaze said, I'm in control. Jack's stare replied, not for long. Lily turned, catching Jack's eyes. Her breath caught. Did he know? Or was it just the illusion of a desperate soul hoping for an ally in a room built on lies? She quietly poured water, moving slowly, as if stretching each second before it shattered. Jack gave a slight nod, No words, just a nod that carried the weight of understanding. No one else heard, but her heart did, and so did his. From across the room, Greg kept watching, his stare sharp as a knife against stone. He sensed something slipping out of his control, but didn't yet know what. "Keep an eye on table 32, he muttered to a server. "If they get too cozy, I'll cut both." Lily kept working, forcing herself not to glance toward that corner again, but every time she passed, she felt his gaze follow, not threatening, not pitying, just seeing her, in a way no one had in years. Jack quietly wrote a few words on the bill, not a number, a message. She didn't know. Greg didn't either, only Jack. And the plan growing inside his silence. A glass shattered at the bar. Everyone turned. Greg barked, "Who did that?" "Accident, sir." "Then pay for it." He said it like every mistake existed only to prove his power. Jack's eyes darkened. The whole room seemed to be still. The golden light turned pale. Laughter and chatter became background noise for the only thing still real. The fear moved quietly between the tables. Lily stepped toward him, voice barely there. "Would you like dessert?" "Just the check." She nodded. "Of course." Her voice was thin, like a thread ready to break. When she set down the bill, her fingers brushed the folded napkin. A strange feeling passed through her, as if something waited inside. Greg watched from afar, eyes sharp. She didn't dare open it, just lowered her head and walked away. But Jack never took his eyes off her. In the half-dark, beneath the faint clatter of cutlery, their gazes met again. No words, only silence, speaking louder than the music that filled the room. Who was watching whom? Who was hiding whose truth? No one knew anymore. Only this. Tonight, a silent game had begun. Lily stood still behind the counter, candlelight flickering against her tired face. A white napkin lay before her, an empty space waiting to become a confession. She picked up the pen, her hand trembling. Her heartbeat was loud enough to hear. So many times she had wanted to speak. And every time fear won. Fear of Greg. Fear of losing her job. Fear that Ben would be left without medicine. But silence was just another kind of death. She pressed the pen down. "They're watching you." Checked the ledger in Greg's office. 4 short lines, ink blurred by tears. She folded the napkin slowly, each crease like burying a secret. The candle wavered. Her shadow stretched long across the counter. If Greg saw, she'd lose everything. If she said nothing, truth would stay buried with those who'd already kept quiet. She took a deep breath. Her hand still trembled, but her eyes no longer did. A soul had chosen its direction. She stepped from behind the bar, the napkin hidden in her palm. Jack was preparing to leave. She approached, steadying her voice. "Sir, let me get that for you." He smiled softly, standing, pulling out his chair. "Thank you, Lily." As he turned away, she moved to slip the napkin beneath the bill. But Greg appeared. "Everything okay here?" She froze, the napkin nearly slipping from her fingers. "Yes, sir. Just clearing the table." Greg smiled faintly, arms folded. "Make sure you don't miss anything." She nodded, swallowing hard. He lingered a moment, as if engraving in her mind that he was everywhere. When he finally walked off, Jack was already near the door. The chance was slipping away. She looked at the napkin, then at him. Her heart pounded like drums. She couldn't let it end there. She turned toward the kitchen, set the napkin on a tray, and took a breath. "Do something, Lily." The voice inside her sounded like a command. She stepped out quickly, louder than usual. "Sir, you forgot your tip." Jack stopped, turned back. The whole restaurant turned too, even Greg. He walked toward her, calm but alert. "Oh, I thought I left it." She smiled gently, her eyes flicking toward the napkin on the tray. "Maybe you did, maybe not." The words hung in the air. Only 2 people understood. He took the napkin, nodded. "Thank you, Lily." "Anytime, sir." Her smile was thin as thread, fragile but real. From across the room, Greg watched, suspicion sharp in his stare. But there was no proof. When Jack left through the door, Lily turned back, heart still pounding. Everything inside her seemed to melt with the breath she exhaled. She had just betrayed power and protected the truth she still believed in. She looked at her reflection in the bar mirror. The same girl her mother once told, "If you can't be rich, be kind." And tonight, she had chosen kindness. She didn't know the cost, but her heart felt lighter. Outside, Jack paused beneath the streetlight. He unfolded the napkin. The words appeared under the dim gold glow. "They're watching you." Check the ledger in Greg's office. A cold wind swept through, blurring the ink like spilled blood. He clenched the napkin in his hand. The puzzle pieces locked into place. Why did she look at him that way? Why Greg's eyes carried that edge? He lifted his gaze toward the restaurant window. Lily was inside, wiping a table, as if nothing had happened. But through the glass and candlelight, he saw her eyes, calm on the surface, afraid underneath. Two people, standing on opposite sides of a secret, had just signed a silent pact. That night, the gilded fork still glittered. Guests still laughed. Greg still charmed the rich. And Lily still smiled as if nothing had changed. Only Jack walked away, his hand wrapped around a folded napkin, a napkin that carried the beginning of a coming storm. Jack stepped out of the restaurant. The night air was cool against his coat. The jazz inside faded, giving way to the wind howling down the empty street. He stopped beneath the streetlight and unfolded the napkin in his hand. The ink blurred, yet clear enough to slow his heart. "They're watching you. Check the ledger in Greg's office." A small line, like a whisper in a storm. He stared at the napkin for a long time. Suddenly, everything felt rearranged. The man hunting truth had become the one found by truth. Streetlight split his face into half light, half shadow. Something inside him cracked, from doubt to certainty, from a test to a battlefield. He walked toward his car, napkin gripped like living proof. Part of him wanted to believe it was a mistake. Another part knew better. He had seen this kind of rot before. It did not begin with greed. It began with silence. He opened his phone and scrolled to an old folder. Internal reports, lines of warnings once ignored, filled the screen. Supplier 17A. Recall pending. Batch 42. Contamination risk. All the small things he had once shrugged off. Now the napkin's 4 words hit like a punch to the conscience. Poisoning the supply chain. The phrase rang inside him like metal scraping brick. Not a metaphor. Not gossip. Someone inside his system cut corners to profit. People paid for their meals for those shortcuts. He looked back through the restaurant window. Lily still wiped a table, smiling under candlelight. A small woman in a world of lies had chosen to speak, a choice that could cost her job, or worse. He understood then. She was the one being hunted. Anger and shame mixed in his chest. Everything he had taught about ethics was betrayed by his own empire. He remembered his mother and a broken wooden box. Honesty isn't what you say, Jack. It's what you fix when no one's looking. Now no one was watching, except a waitress who trusted him anyway. He smiled, a painful small thing. The test he thought he was running had flipped. She proved dignity could survive poverty. He now had to prove conscience could survive wealth. He tucked the napkin into his jacket, eyes hardening. "All right," he whispered. "You wanted the truth, Jack. Now you pay for it." A gust swept past the gilded fork sign. A candle inside wavered, and Lily looked up as if sensing a rule had changed. One girl, one warning. An empire is cracking. And a man realizing the moral test had become a life-or-death fight tonight. Jack sat in the car, amber light washing the fogged window. His hand still gripped the folded napkin like proof. He scrolled to the only name he trusted on his phone. Alex Parker. The call connected after 3 rings. "Jack, it's late." "Not late enough. Get me everything on Greg Stone and the girl." "Lily Hart?" "Yes, quietly." His voice was hoarse but steady. "Don't use company channels, no records, no trails." Silence cut the line like a knife. "What did you find?" Alex asked. something that smells like rot, and it wears my logo. The pause on the other end felt like a wound. All right, give me a few hours. Make it less. Jack ended the call, eyes on the dark road. Lights blinked like a failing heartbeat. A knock at the window startled him. Ren Shaw stood there, long coat and silvering hair, eyes cold as a folding blade. Once MI6, now his quiet security advisor. She tilted her head. Trouble in paradise? He tossed the napkin toward her. She opened it, scanned the words, then smiled softly. Ledger in Greg's office. Classic move. Classic theft, maybe. Or something worse. Like poisoning the supply chain. Her look sharpened. Then you know this won't stay small. Nothing ever does. She produced a small map from her pocket. Back entrance. Kitchen corridor. One camera, blind spot every 30 seconds. Maintenance leaves around midnight? 11:45. I checked. Jack smiled thinly. I thought you retired. I did, but you're the trouble that keeps me young. She opened the trunk and handed him 2 gray uniforms. Gloves, fake staff IDs, rubber gloves bundled inside. Custodial staff. He raised an eyebrow. Janitorial team, invisible by design. Poetic. Practical. She tossed the uniforms to him. Try not to get us caught. Millionaire. He answered with a quiet laugh. I'll try to blend in. Good luck. Your shoes cost more than the building. He shed the luxury coat for gray overalls smelling of bleach. A strange feeling settled over him. From penthouse vantage to midnight janitor, he bowed under his own dust. He muttered to himself softly, Funny, it takes losing everything to see clearly. Ren's voice was low. You don't lose by fighting, Jack. You lose by watching. They moved down the dim corridor behind the kitchen. Fans hummed, lights were low. No more words were needed. Every footstep felt like a heartbeat. Metal clinks echoed like warnings. They reached the office door. Ren knelt, opened an electronic lockbox with practiced hands. 2 minutes, she said. Jack watched the clock, sweat beading at his brow. Not fear, but the knowledge of what discovery would cost, Ren murmured. You know, normal people call the cops. Normal people don't own the mess, he replied. The lock clicked. She pushed the door and nodded toward him. After you, Mr. Custodian. The office was cold and still, like a tomb. Scent of polished wood. Money and lies filled the air. He switched on the desk lamp, light spilling over thick ledgers. Ren photographed each ledger page with her phone. Dates, supplier names, item codes, a strange mark. R42B. Jack frowned. R42B. That's our imported batch from Manila. Check the margins, she said. He scanned. Costs went down 38%, while quantities stayed equal. He clenched his fist. Cut quality. Add chemicals. Save millions. Poison the people. He nodded slowly, voice low. And she's the only one who noticed. Then she's in danger. A door shuddered. They froze. Footsteps approached outside. Greg's muffled voice drifted down the corridor. Someone left the lights on. Ren snapped the lamp off, pulling Jack into shadow. Greg's keys rattled. Time stretched long as a lifetime. His phone rang. He muttered, then walked away. Ren exhaled, a tiny smile breaking through. Try not to get us caught, millionaire, she teased. Too late for that. They already will, he answered. He scanned the room, eyes burning. Ledgers and numbers pointed toward someone above Greg. He folded the final page, pocketing it carefully. Ren asked softly, So what's next? He replied like thunder in the distance. Next, we make them see what they've been eating. As they left, a loose page fluttered to the floor. One line stood bold. Batch 42B. Recall suspended by order of Vickers. Jack halted, head turning. The name hit him like cold rain. Ron Vickers. He knew that name. The game had climbed another floor. From here, there was no turning back. Night had deepened. The city seemed to hold its breath. Rain tapped softly against the glass of the high-rise. Neon lights reflected on the wet pavement below. A sparkle-clean van idled by the service door. Ren adjusted a staff badge at her collar. Jack pulled his cap low, nodding. Ready? Always, she replied, voice low. They pushed inside, disinfectant scent mixing with charred meat. Silence felt too loud. Security loop active, 10 minutes, Wren whispered. Jack rolled the floor scrubber ahead, eyes sweeping corners. It felt like sneaking through a maze he once trusted. Now it was only a hollow shell. His shadow stretched on the tile like a confession. The manager's office sat at the corridor's end. A steel door marked Authorized Personnel Only. After you, Jack said. Wren bent, tapping a device into the electronic lock. 2 beeps, a faint smile. Technology's only loyal until you pay more. The door opened. Leather, liquor, and lies filled the air. Awards lined the shelf, a Little League trophy among them. Number 1, Jack murmured, eyeing the plaque. Wren scanned with an infrared reader. The safe's behind the bookshelf, she said. Jack pulled. A black steel door revealed itself. A keypad blinked 4 empty fields. He's arrogant. Try his number, Wren suggested. Jack punched 2023. A long beep answered. Wrong. 3 tries, Wren warned calmly. His gaze landed on a family photo. Greg, in a white suit, is a boy wearing jersey 17. 17, Jack breathed. Try 17, Wren said. He entered the digits, breath held. A soft click answered. They stood frozen, as if time had inhaled. The safe creaked open. Inside lay a black leather ledger. Its corner bore a faint red stain. Wren flipped pages, thumbs rapid. Handwritten lines, dates, order codes. A mark. R42B. Batch code repeats 3 times, she said. That's not accounting. That's laundering. Jack found enormous payments to Westland Provisions. That plant's been closed for 6 months, he whispered. Someone keeps it alive on paper, Wren said. He photographed every page with his phone. Greg's a funnel, not the mastermind, she added. Meaning, he asked. Someone is feeding this from higher up. The final name made both of them still. Vickers International Holdings. Ron Vickers, Jack said under his breath. Your supply director? Wren asked. My mistake, Jack replied. Footsteps sounded in the hall. The door lit. Wren killed the desk lamp, pulling Jack into the shadow. Greg's voice rolled down the corridor. I told security to tighten access. No more audits. Yes, sir, came the reply. Lock everything after this. No one touches my office till morning. Locks clicked from outside. They heard the bolt slide home. Great, we're locked in, Jack murmured. Wren smiled faintly. Getting out is easier than getting in, she said. She opened a backpack, drew tools. A minute later, the door eased. Jack stepped back, grinning despite himself. Remind me to double your pay, he joked. Triple, she corrected. You panic well, she added. They left with a USB of data and the leather ledger. Jack paused, scanning the room one last time. Every lie starts somewhere, he whispered. I guess this was mine. Wren's eyes were steel and depth. Then burn it, Jack, before it burns you. Outside, rain hammered harder. They slipped through the back door into the night. The black ledger felt heavy like a stone. This isn't about steak anymore, Jack said. Never was, Wren answered. Streetlights split their reflections on puddles. One man built an empire on trust. One woman learned how to unmake its lies. Tonight, they stepped into the light together, evidence in hand, and truth beginning to move. Dawn warmed the glass of the high-rise. Sunlight cut across Jack's sleepless face. A USB lay on the desk beside cold coffee. The laptop screen showed lines of code decrypting. Arthur's voice came through the speaker, even and cold. I finished decrypting it. Jack stayed silent. Keyboard clicks marked the waiting air. Arthur continued, steady. Greg Stone wasn't stealing small. He moved product through Westland Provisions. Jack frowned. That plant's shut down. On paper, it's alive. They route contaminated meat through ghost invoices. Sold back as prime organic. Jack breathed. His hands clenched. How bad? He asked. Arthur exhaled slowly. Bad enough to shut the chain. And Jack, there's more. A video window opened on the screen. Grainy footage from a hidden camera in Greg's office. Greg reclined, a half smile playing on his face. Across from him sat Lily, hands clenched, shoulders trembling. His voice was a blade. "You think anyone will believe you? You owe me $5,000, sweetheart. You talk, your brother loses his insurance. You hear me?" Her nod was small. Tears tracked down her cheeks. Greg leaned closer, menace soft. "Fix my books, or I'll make sure both of you disappear." Arthur whispered into the phone. "That file was labeled insurance. He keeps multiple tapes like this." Different staff, different threats. Jack sank back, hand over his face. The office fan hummed like a tiny storm. The girl he met last night wasn't merely frightened. She was fighting alone in the darkness he had created. She risked everything to save customers and herself. He sat upstairs, counting profits from soulless reports. Arthur's voice came again. "Jack, you still there?" He answered, voice rough with guilt. "She saved lives, while I measured profits." Silence stretched long. Arthur waited, said nothing. Jack understood he'd just pronounced his own verdict. He stared down at the city still glittering in morning light. Buildings bore his name like tombstones now, not for the dead, but for trust betrayed. He spoke slowly, each word heavy. "I built this empire to honor my mother's lesson, to build with honesty." He gripped the napkin Lily had given him. "She gave me honesty, and I almost let her die for it." Arthur tried to calm down. "We have evidence. We can call the authorities now." "Let them handle Greg," he suggested. Jack shook his head slowly. "This isn't just Greg. It's everyone who signed the silence. It's the disease I spread by valuing numbers over people." He rose, voice steel. "I'm done watching reports. I'm going to the floor." Arthur hesitated. "Jack, the FBI is ready to move. Let them move after me. I want Greg to see my face." A pause, then Arthur replied quietly. "Then I'll be right behind you." Jack shut the laptop. Morning light laid his confession bare. He shoved the napkin into his jacket pocket. He faced his reflection in the glass. Not the polished billionaire anymore, just a man who lost his soul to numbers. His mother's words echoed in his head. "Honesty is what you build when no one's watching," he whispered, barely heard. "Then maybe it's time to build again." He walked toward the elevator without hesitation. Below, the staff began their day. Unaware of the empire trembling, all his lights, wealth, and power felt suddenly hollow. Only one thing mattered now: return dignity to the woman who dared speak truth. As the doors closed, his gaze steadied. For the first time in years, a human light awoke in his eyes. Dawn rose slowly and steadily, light spilling across the dark wood table. Jack stood, eyes fixed on the distant skyline. The city below hustled on, unaware of the betrayal born here. He cradled a cup of coffee gone cold. Stacks of printed reports lay on the desk, dense with numbers and seals. Things that once made him proud now read like evidence. The phone chimed. Alex Parker's voice came over the line. "Jack, the FBI's in position. They'll move on your word." He glanced at the napkin beside his cup. It was creased and stained. Yet the message read clear. "They're watching you," he whispered. "She's the hero, Alex. Not me. Jack. She risked her life to tell the truth. I'll make them listen." A pause stretched across the connection. "You're really going down there yourself?" Alex asked. "Someone must look that man in the eye before justice does." "Then let me ride with you." Jack smiled, soft and certain. "No. Stay on comms. Coordinate the agents. I need clean lines." He hung up, opened a drawer, and took out an old silver badge. Blackwell Industries. Built on integrity. He stared at it until it lost its shine. Now it felt like a reminder, not a symbol. A helicopter's engine hummed distantly outside. The morning air slid through the curtains, damp and bright. He faced himself in the glass, speaking to no one but the truth. "I spent years hiding behind glass walls, watching others build my dream. Today, I walk the floor with them." The elevator doors closed, reflecting his face between the lights. When they opened, 2 FBI agents waited, stiff and ready. "We move on your signal, sir," one said. Jack shook his head, short. "No, sir, just Jack." On the drive, commuters blurred past like ordinary lives. People who trusted their food, their workplaces, and their day remained unbroken. He clenched his hands quietly. "Never again," he whispered. Alex called back with news. "The media smelled a hint. They'll be outside the restaurant within an hour." "Good," Jack answered, voice low. "Let them see what truth looks like when it stops hiding." The cobbled lane revealed the gilded fork ahead, cold and immaculate. Glass flashed the new sun as if nothing could reach inside. He knew differently now. Inside, a single soul had dared to light a match. He stepped from the car. "Ready, Mr. Blackwell?" the agent asked. He straightened his collar, eyes on the servers through the window. "I was born ready to build. Now I'm ready to tear down." The doors opened. Footsteps rang on the stone floor. Guests glanced up, curiosity sparking. No one recognized the man who'd sat at table 32 last night. He paused, and his gaze found Lily arranging glasses at the bar. Their eyes met. No words were needed. She understood. He understood. Outside, FBI vehicles idled, engines low. The world seemed to tilt, suspended for a breath. A story was ending. To let justice begin. He whispered, barely audible, "This ends now." He moved forward. Not as a billionaire savior, not as a distant rescuer, but as a man, finally brave enough to stand on the right side. Midday sky gleamed like polished steel. Black SUVs rolled along the cobblestone street. Doors opened. Jack Blackwell stepped out, voice low as wind through glass. "Let's finish this." Inside, Greg Stone laughed at the bar. A waiter rushed over. "Sir, someone's here to see you." "Tell them I'm busy." "Sir, it's corporate." Greg turned. His grin froze. At the entrance, Jack was walking in. No worn coat, no scuffed shoes. A gray suit, clean lines, eyes sharp as a blade. Greg's face drained. Mr. Blackwell." Jack's tone was calm, each word landing heavy. "I had a meal here last night." He looked around the crystal lights and hushed tables. "I ordered the Emperor's Cut, the most expensive dish in this house." Greg forced a smile. "Of course, sir, I hope everything was to your satisfaction." Jack met his eyes. It was enlightening. Silence hit like glass shattering. Greg's breath faltered. Jack walked slowly toward table 32, the small one near the kitchen, still marked by a scratch across its wood. He rested his hand there. "This table," he said softly, "was meant to hide the people you didn't want seen." Greg's smile twisted. "Sir, if there's been a misunderstanding." "The misunderstanding," Jack cut in, "was thinking I wouldn't find out." Behind him, Wren and 2 FBI agents entered. Badges flashed, voices firm. "Gregory Stone, you're under arrest for fraud, coercion, and endangerment." Greg stumbled back. "This is insane." "I run this place by the book." Jack straightened, hands in his pockets. "You wrote your own book and filled it with poison." Staff froze. The restaurant held its breath. Lily stood near the counter, tray trembling in her hands. Jack turned to her. "Miss Hart, could you join us, please?" She hesitated, then stepped forward. Each step felt like walking through ice. Greg lunged for control. "Sir, this girl's the problem. She falsified records, tried to blackmail me." Lily's face went pale. Jack spoke gently. "Tell the truth, Miss Hart." She looked at him. No pressure, only trust. Lily drew a breath. "Mr. Blackwell, he threatened me. Said he'd ruin me if I didn't change the books. My brother's sick. I had no choice." Greg sneered. "Of course she'd say that. She's desperate." Jack nodded to Wren. "Play the file." Wren tapped a small recorder. Greg's own voice filled the air, cold and familiar. "You talk. Your brother loses his insurance. You hear me?" The room froze. Not a sound. Greg staggered backwards, sweat rising. "Wait, that's edited. You can't." An agent stepped forward. "Save it for your lawyer." Handcuffs clicked. Metal on metal echoed through the luxury silence. Greg was led out between 2 agents. His eyes burned with disbelief and hate. Jack watched him go. No anger, no triumph. Only truth. Restored to its place, he turned to Lily, his voice softened. "You did the hardest thing a person can do. You told the truth." Tears broke from her eyes. "I thought I'd lose everything." Jack nodded. You gained something he never had: integrity. No applause followed, only quiet breaths and lowered heads. The kind of silence that feels like dawn breaking. Jack's words carried through the still air. This house was built to serve people. Somewhere along the way, we started serving greed. That ends today. Lily covered her face, crying softly. He looked once more, calm and steady. Get some rest, Miss Hart. Tomorrow will be different. Greg's footsteps vanished beyond the door. The echo of cuffs remained, a rhythm of awakening. The restaurant stayed still. A chapter of deceit closed, and in the quiet center of that room, dignity began to breathe again. The restaurant stayed silent. Light streamed through the glass, glinting off table 32, the place where everything began. Jack stood there still, eyes steady on the faces before him. Disbelief, tremor, hope. He turned toward Lily, voice low and sure. Miss Hart, the debt he forced on you is gone. She looked up, tears not yet dry. Sir, what do you mean? Jack spoke slowly, every word deliberate. Every cent he stole from your peace of mind is repaid, and your brother's care. From this moment on, it's fully covered by Blackwell Holdings. Lily stepped back as if the words were too heavy to stand under. Her voice broke. I don't deserve that. Jack shook his head softly. You deserve more than you've ever been given. You reminded me what honesty looks like when it costs something. He looked around the room. Some staff bowed their heads. Others wiped their eyes. When he spoke again, his tone carried calm strength. This company was built to make money. Somewhere along the way, it forgot to make meaning. That ends today. His eyes found Lily again. The note you wrote saved a company and reminded me to be human again. She whispered through tears. I just didn't want anyone else to get hurt. Jack's smile was faint, warm. And that's why you're going to lead the change. Murmurs rippled through the room. He placed a document on the table, the red seal bright against the wood. Director of Ethical Oversight, effective immediately. She stared, breath caught. Me? Sir, I'm just a waitress. Jack's voice softened. You're the conscience this place was missing. You'll oversee every supply line, every manager, every voice that's been silenced. From now on, integrity has an office. And it starts with you. No one moved. Then a quiet sigh drifted across the room. The sound of release. Lily trembled, then nodded slowly. I accept. Not because I'm ready, but because you believe I can be. Jack smiled, light glinting in his eyes. That's all leadership ever is. He turned to the others. Every one of you, from today, will be paid for every lost hour, every cut corner, every honest effort that was stolen. No one here will ever bow to fear again. At first, only silence, then a timid clap, then another. The applause swelled, soft but alive, like justice breathing for the first time. Lily bowed her head, tears falling onto the appointment letter. Jack's words came quietly but clearly. We built walls to look powerful, but she showed us a door to become real. Sunlight fell across table 32, across the wet eyes and lifted faces. Jack turned to leave. He knew justice couldn't erase the past, but it could open a path forward. Behind him, Lily's voice trembled. Mr. Blackwell. He stopped. She smiled through tears. Thank you for seeing me, he answered softly. No, Miss Hart. Thank you for making me see. Outside, the sky broke open with light. A new chapter began. Not built on power, but on compassion. And through the fading applause, Jack's voice lingered, almost to himself. Maybe saving a company isn't about profit. It's about remembering why you started. Sometimes, one small act can shake an empire. A napkin, a single line of ink, a choice to do what's right, even when no one is watching. Jack Blackwell walked into his own restaurant to test honesty, and found it in the heart of a young woman who had nothing left but faith. Truth is never loud. It whispers through those who care when others turn away. One folded napkin stopped a billion-dollar machine, but it also restarted something far greater: humanity. Because honesty isn't built in boardrooms, it's born in quiet hearts. It lives in the hands that serve, in the voices that dare to speak, and in the courage that refuses to look away. If one piece of paper can change an empire, imagine what your voice could do today. Maybe that voice is where the change begins. Secrets, stories, transformations. Every story here begins with a whisper and ends with a choice. A choice to believe that goodness still exists. A choice to stand for what's right, even when it costs you. If this story moved you, press like, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and subscribe to keep hearing real stories of courage and compassion, because the next brave act could begin with you.